Welcome everyone. This is your host, Flye Books. Today I have author Tremayne Moore. He is the author of 2 works of poetic verse, Take It From Me, Cautionary Tales from a Former Fool. I love that title. And Take It From Her, Cautionary Lessons from the Ladies We Love. Welcome.
Thank you.
Well, to first start out, let's just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I am an accountant, and basically I have a love for music. I think writing was purely an accident, but I also believe it was also divine inspiration, intervention from God, rather.
Right. I know that you started out in rap. You said you started out in rap, and rap we associate with the secular world.
Correct.
But then in your poems, you really talk about your change and your spiritual walk. Is that why you chose the genre of poetic verse, because of your love of rap or coming from that rap background?
Partly, when you fall in love and you're trying to win a woman's heart, and one of my classmates in high school was deep into poetry, real poetry, and I was trying to win her heart, and she was like, does your friend like poetry? And I said, I don't know. So I took what I had, which was a simple rap song. She worded it around, and it became a poem. And at the time, this was around the early 90s, rap music was also becoming very violent and very vulgar, and I was trying to change my life around and basically get serious about my faith in God more than anything.
Exactly. So what inspired you to write these books?
Well, to be honest, I didn't even plan on writing Take It From Me.
Really?
One of my friends got a hold of a poem called A Cheating Story, and she forwarded it to a publisher, and at that time I had written maybe about 20 or 30 poems already. So I went ahead and just sent up a couple more to her because the publisher at the time wanted to read more of what I had. She loved it, but her editor rejected it. This was back in 2007. So the publisher was like, give it 6 months, and then at the time she was about to revamp her company and do self-publishing. That way authors can maintain their royalties. So I sat on the book for about a year and a half longer until I met my editor, Charles. Actually, I met her back in 2007, but at the time, in 2009, she was a writer, and found out that she also edited within 3 or 4 months later. Take It From Me was released.
Wow. In your Take It From Her book, Cautionary Lessons from the Ladies We Love, the one poem that I really enjoyed was A Woman's Body. And in this poem, you really speak to women about loving their bodies and feeling good about their bodies and knowing that their bodies are the temple of God. How did you come about creating this particular poem? What was the spark of interest with that one?
Actually, what sparked that particular poem was, I asked a couple of women to throw out some ideas that are of concern to them. And one of my sister friends was talking about a woman, basically teenage women, basically not allowing men to mishandle their bodies, and that was the inspiration to write that poem.
Because a lot of your poems really deal with the everyday issues that women face, especially in this book. I know in the other poem you have here, Skin Deep, which I also enjoy, because a lot of us, we look at the superficial and we don't look beyond what is inside of a person. What inspired this poem, the Skin Deep poem?
This actually came about while my editor, Charles, was editing it, and sometimes Shantae can also get inspired during the course of reading something, and or she may have something that's a concern to her spirit. And while we were editing the book, she will jot down notes underneath the poems, and that became one of the titles, and ended up writing that one.
So it sounds like it is very important for a writer to have an editor.
Absolutely.
Would you agree?
Absolutely.
What does the editor do for the writer? Why would a writer need an editor to step in?
Because it's not enough to just be able to know your work, but the editor, it's good to have another set of eyes, and it's more importantly, and the editor can bring out things that you as an author may not see.
Have you had some conflict from some of your church members or from people who consider themselves Christian in your poems?
Absolutely.
And what were some of those issues that they had with you writing the truth?
I didn't really have too many issues. I think most of the issues that I have more along the lines of basically, you're making it sound like you're better than me because you're fulfilling your talent. And we want you kind of like sitting in the church not doing anything pretty much. Or unless, I think part of the issues now that I see in the church world is a lot of favoritism goes on within the leadership.
I see. But to me, it's like you are using your talent, and it would be an inspiration for others to realize that we all have some talent. Absolutely. And to use that for the good.
Absolutely.
You know? So it's and then one of your other poems did speak to the church, and it was in the Take It From Me, the Cautionary Tales from a Former Fool. How did you come up with that title? I love that title.
That came actually with a conversation with my editor as we were editing the poems and sharing with her some of the inspiration as to where a lot of the poems stem from.
I see.
That's where, and she knows that I'm a clown, so that's where the title came from.
I see. And speaking back to what we were saying about the church, the last portion of your What's Wrong With Me from the Take It From Me, Cautionary Tales from a Former Fool, it says, what's wrong with me for feeling as I do? What's wrong with me? I'm here to serve God's purposes, not you. What's wrong with me? I figured it out. I'm living in a different kingdom, changed from the inside out. How long have you realized, when did you decide to make that change? To leave what considered the secular world and really move into that spiritual realm that is within all of us?
I think that start came from, I've always had a love for God when I was little. I think as I was getting older, and I remember one woman I was crazy about, she was trying to get her life right with God. And I remember asking her, can you help me?
Right.
And then from there, I bought my first Bible, and then from there, basically God was just dealing with me for a number, especially during the time in the military. And then from there, I just was like, okay, I'm going for it.
Right. And what would you say to inspire other writers, to put their words on paper and not be afraid to do that?
Basically, just write whatever is on your heart, no matter how silly it may sound. Because I remember trying to write something when I was little, it didn't make sense. But actually, now I still have all my poems from when I was a teenager. And basically, don't ever rule out what you think you can't do. Just go for it, and you'll be surprised at what you can actually do.
That's real positive. Was there a point when you were writing the books that you just said, oh my goodness, I can't do this is stressful, or did you just persevere through it?
I think I went through it. I think a lot of my dark poems, I think I just was able to write it and get a lot of responses. I think hearing seeing people respond to it via email at the time was encouragement to me, and to know that people's lives were touched was motivation to keep going. In fact, when the first editor rejected it, and I remember sharing the poem Andrea and the first book on the plane. She was a 17-year-old girl. As she was reading it, she started crying, and that was motivation to me that okay, maybe I do need to consider a book for real.
Exactly, because sometimes you never know who you're going to touch, and even if you touch that one person, hey, that's positive.
Absolutely.
Because you touched that one person and you changed their life. What message are you trying to get to your readers from your books, from your works?
The message I want readers to get is basically we can always basically there's always room for improvement in a nutshell. And basically selling for mediocrity should not be an option.
That's so true. So what other things are you having? What's coming up next for you?
I currently have my third book, Take It From Him, in the series For Men of Standard and the Women Who Love Them.
And what is that book going to be about?
These are issues that we men deal with. I talk about 7 types of men. There's the determined man, the tired man, the loving man, the deviant man, the troubled man, which is internal issues that men face, external issues, which is the concerned man, the next one, which is basically this man is concerned about what's going on in the world. And the last man, the real man, which is really who basically God is letting everybody know who I am, basically. And Jesus is the man.
And that's the truth. So are you going to continue? It sounds like you are going to continue with your writing.
Yes.
Do you want to expand to a different genre, or will you stick with the poetic verse?
Actually, I am working on a novel, which I hope to release next year. I won't make any promises. But I would like to, I see a couple of novels in my mind, and which I'm starting to work on as I
Well, I'm sure you're going to do really, really, very, very well.